Coming up on this Tuesday edition of Daybreak, South Korea and Canada have signed a free trade agreement to deepen the links between the financial and technological economies of the two countries. North Korea's abysmal human rights record will be addressed at the ministerial level for the first time at the UN General Assembly later on this Tuesday. Plus, the medals keep piling up for South Korea at the Incheon Asian Games. The country now has 14 golds and is second in the medal standings behind China. Korea's main swimming hope, Park Tae-hwan, will make another attempt for a gold later today. Daybreak begins now.
Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Tuesday, September 23rd here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broome and you're tuned in to Daybreak. Our top story this morning: after nearly a decade of negotiations, Korea has signed a free trade agreement with Canada. Now, this is a huge deal for both sides, as it is Canada's first such deal in the Asia-Pacific region, and it's going to give Korean automakers much better access to the lucrative North American market. During President Park Geun-hye's state visit to Ottawa this week, the two sides have also upgraded their ties to a strategic partnership. Our Chae-Sun starts us off.
With the signing of a bilateral free trade agreement, Korea and Canada have elevated their relations to a strategic partnership, placing a greater emphasis on their political and economic cooperation and mutual trust. Seoul and Ottawa set global peace and co-prosperity as their shared goals. Aside from the signing of the FTA, the two partnering nations sealed a number of deals to increase cross-sharing of advanced technologies. For instance, Korea will offer its know-how from IT-based new energy industries such as the smart grid and energy storage system, in return for Canada's shale gas and oil sands exploration and development technologies.
We pushed for a memorandum of understanding to expand from cooperation in our strong clean energy technology to that of Canada's oil technology.
Korea's state-run power company, meanwhile, will test the self-sufficient microgrid system, a combination of renewable energy, energy storage, and smart grid technology in Canada. Canada will also share some of its activities in the Arctic with Korea.
Canada is geographically an Arctic nation, the chair of the Arctic Economic Council, and is currently building a research base there. Through the latest MOU, we will be able to jointly use Canada's Arctic base and explore mineral resources.
President Park Geun-hye and Prime Minister Stephen Harper will also expand their working holiday program to encourage more people-to-people exchanges. The Korean president secured Ottawa's support for her efforts to build trust towards the nuclear-free unified Korea. President Park now heads to New York to seek international support for her security and unification policies at the United Nations. Chae-Sun, Arirang News, Ottawa.
Now, a high-level meeting discussing North Korea's human rights violations will be held on Tuesday on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. The meeting, which will be presided over by US Secretary of State John Kerry, will also be attended by South Korea's Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se, as well as other diplomats from the EU and Japan. Kerry is expected to condemn Pyongyang's human rights violations, focusing in particular on its political prison camp system, and he'll also likely bring up the issue of the 3 Americans detained in the north. The meeting is aimed at garnering enough support for a UN resolution on the issue. North Korea has once again condemned the sending of anti-Pyongyang leaflets across the border, saying that South Korea should not call for talks with North Korea anymore. The North issued a statement on Monday calling the act a challenge against their efforts for dialogue and to improve inter-Korean relations. A group of civic activists from South Korea launched balloons carrying anti-Pyongyang leaflets into the sky from Paju on Sunday. The statement said South Korea can no longer mention things like dialogue or trust, adding that it will not respond to proposals for talks with Seoul. It also warned of retaliation, possibly militarily, against the activists who launch these balloons, and it could come at any time. A major South Korean news channel is reporting that groundbreaking economic reforms are underway in North Korea. Seoul-based YTN says changing to the farming sector will reward the most productive workers for their hard work. Our Hwang Sang-hee reports.
A major shift in North Korea's economic policy will let North Korean farmers keep more than half of their profit starting next year. Citing sources familiar with North Korean affairs, Seoul-based YTN reports that the North plans to distribute an equal portion of farmland to households, allowing them 60% of their harvest, with the state taking the remainder. Currently, groups of 20 to 30 people assigned to work at collective farms divide up a portion of the yield among them. Family unit farming is expected to give them more incentive to work harder, giving the impoverished state a much-needed boost in agricultural output. North Korea has reportedly been running a pilot program on a few factories and farms since its announcement of economic reforms in 2012.
The expansion of household farming and self-management of factories is a sign of stability in the Kim Jong-un's regime. North Korea could boost its overseas economic cooperation based on its market economy, but to a level where it doesn't get out of control.
But despite the bold reform proposals, many are skeptical about whether it will succeed, as fundamental uncertainties about the regime remain. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Now, we don't want to get too carried away, but there is renewed hope. The months-long deadlock at Korea's National Assembly may be nearing an end. Moon Hee-sang, who is the new interim leader of Korea's main opposition party, and Kim Moo-sung, chairman of the ruling party, held talks on Monday for the first time since Moon was chosen to lead the opposition party late last week. Now, both agreed to urge the floor leaders of their respective parties to meet with their counterparts to find, hopefully, a resolution to this extremely contentious Seoul-Ho ferry bill, over which the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy is boycotting all parliamentary proceedings. Now, the ruling Saenuri party plans to carry on with its sessions this week, with or without the opposition, and plans to pass scores of bills, around 90 bills, related to the economy and public welfare. Now, hot on the heels of its announcement to raise cigarette prices by 80% next year, the Korean government says it plans to plough tens of millions of dollars into public anti-smoking campaigns. Our Park Ji-won reports.
Lee Jae-wook is one of many in the country who have decided to quit smoking before the cigarette price hike takes effect. He's used every method he knows to try and kick the habit, including gargling solutions and physical exercise.
I feel an urge to smoke again when I'm stressed out, or when I see people around me smoking.
Doctors say nicotine withdrawal symptoms are much more short-lived than most think, lasting only a few days, although it varies person to person.
Intense nicotine withdrawal symptoms generally last around 7 to 10 days, so it's important to endure and get through those first 10 days.
But that's easier said than done. To encourage smoking cessation and nip the addicted habit in the bud altogether, the Korean government has expanded its anti-smoking campaign budget for next year to $145 million. That's more than 13 times the $11 million allocated for 2014. About 35% of the budget will pay for anti-smoking programs targeting teens.
Currently, 25% of male high school seniors smoke. We will focus on anti-smoking campaigns for adolescents as they represent the future of the nation's health.
To tackle the problem of young smokers, the government says it will implement anti-smoking education from elementary to high schools and teen counseling support centers nationwide. To stem the country's tobacco epidemic, the government plans to work with health and community centers to offer diverse anti-smoking services, even setting up special support programs to help all active soldiers. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Well, now it's time for a look through the international headlines we're following on this Tuesday morning. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim standing by at the news center. Good morning, Eunice.
And good morning to you, Mark. Syrian Kurdish forces are making grounds to fend off Islamic State militants barreling through northern Syria. Spokesman for the Kurdish militia, YPG, said it had stopped the extremist group's advance to the east of Kobani, a predominantly Kurdish border town with Turkey and the site of some of the fiercest clashes. He said fighting was continuing on its sixth day after the IS group launched strikes last Tuesday, triggering an onslaught of refugees to cross over to Turkey. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights confirmed the resistance, saying the jihadists had not made a significant advance in the past 24 hours. This is the Islamic State group's second attempt to conquer Kobani since June. In July, hundreds of Kurds from Turkey had crossed over to fight off the militants. The spokesman said hundreds of young fighters from Turkey were helping to resist the current offensive, though some were blocked by Turkish police. This as Ankara now says more than 130,000 Syrians had poured into Turkey within the past 3 days, fleeing the onslaught of IS militants. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights puts that figure closer to 200,000, marking the largest influx of refugees since Syria's civil war began more than 3 years ago. And the United Nations Refugee Agency says the group of mostly women, children, and the elderly could grow. UNHCR's envoy to Turkey called on international assistance to care for the displaced, saying food, blankets, and winter clothing, particularly for children, were needed. The nationwide lockdown in Sierra Leone was lifted late Sunday as authorities there declared the measure to control the Ebola outbreak a success. They said staff visited more than 1 million households to survey for bodies and educate residents about the highly contagious hemorrhagic virus, registering 130 new cases of Ebola infections. The WHO said on Monday more than 2,800 people have died of the disease in West Africa, but that the situations in Nigeria and Senegal were largely contained. The UN had said it would cost about $1 billion to contain the virus now, but less than half of that has been raised. U.S. tech giant Apple has recorded a new weekend sales record with the release of their iPhone 6 and iPhone 6 Plus smartphones. 10 million iPhones flew off the shelves in the Friday through Sunday period in 10 countries, beating a previous record held by their predecessor, the iPhone 5C and 5S, last year, which recorded a combined 9 million sales in their opening weekend. The phones have yet to be released here in Korea, though Apple did say the new phones will be available in 20 additional countries by the end of this week and will reach some 115 other nations by the end of this year.
And a good Tuesday morning to you all as we continue on with our 2014 Asian Games coverage, starting off with men's swimming. Now, certainly a lot of disappointed fans on Sunday when Park Tae-hwan finished third in the 200-meter freestyle event. But later tonight, it's redemption time as the Marine boys set to compete in the 400-meter freestyle event. Now, in round two of the battle between Park Tae-hwan and Soon-young of China, Kusuke Higano has joined in on the rivalry after winning the 200-meter freestyle gold. But it seems like Soon-young, who was the slight favorite in the 400-meter event, has injured his thumb and will not be 100% as he decided to pull out of the 800-meter event on Monday. And now shifting over to nail-biting gold medal finish by the South Korean women's 25-meter pistol team after beating China for the top podium spot on Monday. In a fierce battle between the two rivals, the team of Kim Jang-mi, Lee Jung-eun, and Kwak Jung-hae scored a combined 1,747 points, which was just a single point ahead of China. Meanwhile, India would finish in third place for the bronze medal after scoring 1,729 points. And now moving over to fencing, Shin Ha-ram, who made headlines during the 2012 London Olympics after the 1-second controversy cost her the gold medal, went after her first individual epee gold in the Asian Games as she went up against China's Sun Hui-jae. And a back-and-forth match as Shin Ha-ram scores a crucial point with just 13 seconds left to tie the match at 5-5, but the third-ranked Chinese fencer pulls through with the winning point in the sudden death round as Shin Ha-ram settles for another silver medal. And shifting over to the baseball tournament where the South Korean national team went into their first game against Thailand on Monday. With SK Wyverns ace Kim Kwang-hyun taking the mound for the South Korean national team, he got all the run support he needed in the first inning as they scored 8 runs in the inning. Big night for NC Dino slugger Na Sung-bum, who went 3 for 4 with 3 RBIs and 2 runs scored as Thailand manages just 2 hits in the game. Korea goes on to win 15-0 as the game is called after 5 innings of play. And now let's finish things off with the medal count after 4 days of the Incheon Asian Games as South Korea added several more medals on Monday, including a bronze medal in the men's 800-meter relay swimming. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
Now, Korea's largest web portal, Naver, says there will be no IPO this year for its Japan-based affiliate Line. Naver says Line, which operates a popular messaging app in the same name, is considering going public in the US and Japan, but the timing's not right at the moment. This comes 2 months after Naver said it was considering an overseas stock market listing. Launched over 3 years ago, Line says it now has more than 500 million subscribers around the world. Now, walk down the street, even in tech-savvy Seoul, and you'll be hard-pressed to find many people, if anyone at all, wearing a smart watch. But that might all be about to change. Analysts say the smartwatch market is expected to take a giant leap forward in the next couple of years. IT research firm Gartner predicts that smartwatches will account for 40% of all consumer wrist-worn devices by the year 2016. The firm forecasts that consumers will start showing more of an interest in smartwatches when the Apple Watch hits the market next year. It also points to China's growing presence in the industry as a factor, especially once they begin to probably flood the market with more affordable models. However, Gartner did point out one challenge that smartwatch developers are going to have to overcome, that being the battery life of the gadgets. Now, dementia is a terrifying affliction that devastates not only the life of the victim, but also those around them. As the country with a rapidly aging population, there are urgent calls for Korea to boost the amount of funding for dementia research. Figures show that by the year 2024, 1 million Koreans will develop the disease. Our Son Jung-in reports.
In January, the father and grandparents of a popular K-pop singer were found dead at their home. The father, who had been the sole caregiver for his parents who were both suffering from dementia, took his own life after murdering them. The incident had raised the alarm about senile dementia, which is a dreadful disease that can have horrible consequences for a family. In Korea, the incident rate for dementia is growing at a rapid rate in relation to Korea's aging population. According to data, there are 6 million citizens currently aged 65 and over in the country. That figure is expected to grow to nearly 10 million by the year 2024. Over the same period, the number of dementia sufferers is forecast to surge 77% to 1 million. In other words, roughly 1 in 10 seniors will suffer from the disease in 10 years. And the population is estimated to age even faster in 2030, when 1 in 7 elderly citizens will be diagnosed.
Dementia occurs more often in people who are in their 70s and 80s than those who are in their 60s. It's worrisome since the proportion of elderly in that age range is growing at an alarming speed.
With dementia emerging as one of the major social challenges in Korea, experts say the government should act more aggressively to guarantee everyone a satisfactory level of life. 손정인, Arirang News.
Now, it's been a few years since divers found remnants of a very old ship off the coast of Korea's western port city of Incheon. But it was only in recent days that the researchers were able to identify just how old the ship actually is. Our Im Yoon-hee has more.
4 years ago, off of Incheon's Yeonghung-do Island, remnants of a large wooden ship were discovered, along with its contents, including what looked like ancient celadon pieces. Rusty iron pot pieces, along with some pottery, were recovered, as was a worn piece of wood from the hull of a ship, finally revealing the truth that was shrouded behind years of mystery. During the 2 years of research, towards the end, the truth was finally recovered. And indeed, the vessel was much older than originally anticipated. In fact, it was over 2,000 years old, coming from the Silla dynasty. The shape of the ship is completely different from many other ships recovered from the Goryeo dynasty, further proving its ancient origins.
Goryeo dynasty vessels usually have 3 levels, but in the case of Yeonghung Dosun ship, the base only has a single tier, and the sides are shaped like an L. So the absence of the other 2 levels and the shape confirm it is from the Silla dynasty.
Through carbon testing, the samples showed they're from the 8th century, reaffirming researchers' predictions about the ship coming from the Silla dynasty, instead of the later Goryeo dynasty. But it's what was inside of the ship that's most important. The many containers and pots recovered are now being treated as priceless historical treasures.
There are no legs and the bottom is very deep. It's also very large. Overall, the shape signifies that this iron pot is from the Silla dynasty from the Hwangnam-dong area or the Changmyeong-Malhungni area. The iron pots and shapes are very similar.
The unique textures and designs shed new light on the Silla dynasty, as does the discovery of the various dyes used then, also found within some of the containers. One thing, however, is now certain, that this is the oldest sea discovery to be found in the waters of Korea. Im Yoon-hee, Arirang News.
Good morning. Let's start the report by giving you an update on the path of the typhoon Fung-Wang. It's still traveling to northward, but it's expected to dissipate before reaching to Korean peninsula. But Typhoon Fung-Wang will trigger a massive weak trough of low pressure to the peninsula, dropping heavy showers to the whole nation. And the southern areas will be directly affected by from early this morning, receiving heavy rainfall, and the rest of the peninsula will also gradually receive the heavy showers into tomorrow. So for today, depends on where you are, the daily highs and the weather outlook could be quite different. So here in Seoul, it's going to be a sunny day with highs reaching to 28, while Gwangju and Busan should start to see showers in the early hours. Now, for other regions, it looks like Jeju Island will be seeing heavy showers throughout the day, and Daejeon will wake up to partly sunny skies, but it should rain soon. Now, the weather outlook in Incheon, where the Asian Games are being held, should have a fine day today, but it's expected to rain a lot tomorrow. So some of the games that are taking place outside could be cancelled. So please beware. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's going to do it from us this morning. Korea Today is coming up at the top of the hour. Have a fabulous day, and thanks ever so much for watching. Goodbye.